Hi everyone, Bethany Mantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Raury album, Indigo Child. There's been a lot of talk of indigos in the underground music / hip-hop scene right now. Underachievers, good guys. But overall, I think there's been a lot of talk of just higher planes of thinking and alternative ways of thought, all that stuff that comes along with having a third eye vision thing. Raury seems to be following suit with that. He is a 17-year-old multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, MC. There's been quite a buzz gathering under his name thanks to a few singles and music videos that are on the internet right now for songs such as God's Whisper and Cigarette Song. And these two tracks essentially seemed like fusions of hip-hop style production with very large, grandiose, far-reaching indie folk music. It's as if he's listening to new and current hip-hop as well as some stuff that might have been hot in the 2000s. Maybe he's a little into the Neptunes, Pharrell, maybe some Odd Future, maybe some of the cloud rap that's out there on the internet right now, but he seems to enjoy just as much like some Bon Iver or some Fleet Foxes, maybe some Lumineers, or other more low-key but very mainstream-friendly singer-songwriters. And even though I think, in a sense, these songs are an interesting combination of these two worlds, I can't really say I'm a fan of either track. The song God's Whisper, while it does start off really well, becomes really incessant and redundant with its constant, unchanging acoustic guitar phrase, its incessant hand claps. The tone of the guitar is very thin, the drum beat gets stale before the song is even over, and Raury as a vocalist is really boring. Such a spacious instrumental could have used a singer that was a little more involved in the track, but instead, Raury seems to just say, or sing rather, as little as possible and just merely plays second fiddle to his own beat. I was kind of on the fence because it seemed like the song, or rather the image that was being put forward for this project, was kind of progressive or forward-thinking, but then I was knocked over onto the more negative side of the fence as soon as I heard Cigarette Song, which not only has one of the most inconsequential instrumentals on this entire LP, but has some really silly lyrics as well about who wants to live forever, and I shared my cigarette with her, and I fucked her on a Wednesday evening. The most appealing thing about this song is the music video, which is a very cinematically shot teenager's wet dream where he has no real responsibilities, and he's got this sexy girl around him, and they're just smoking and being bad and living in this magical treehouse in the forest. So I can't really say I went into this new Raury album with incredibly high hopes, because with these songs thus far, Raury has sounded like every bland guitar strummer I've ever heard for the past 14 years, but with much less pop appeal and an image that seems a little more groomed for the hip crowd. On the deeper cuts of this LP, like on the song Superfly, Raury continues to bring sickeningly saccharine instrumentals. I feel like I'm listening to a combination of Jason Mraz and Bon Iver. And the song Armor is almost like a reboot of the Imagine Dragons track Radioactive, but instead of a dubstep drop, we're getting this wailing guitar line. And on these tracks, as well as others, Raury always seems to slip in these faint, very quiet, young boy rap verses that are very fast, but instead of being just sort of on point and really coherent and articulate, all the words just kind of melt together. It just sounds amateurish and nothing of note really occurs. Instrumentally, most of the songs here are pretty coherent though. The mixes are fine, the beats are pretty well executed for the most part. There's just not anything vocally, chorus-wise, or songwriting-wise that I really see being carried into next year. There's no definitive sonic style to the songs on this record. The songs on this record drown in their own influences. They sound like they've been put together by somebody who's relatively young and musically inexperienced, somebody who hasn't really had the time or the opportunity to hone their own musical thumbprint. And this inexperienced feeling also comes through on a series of tracks that I'm baffled as to why they made it onto this album. It seems to be Raury arguing with his mother. These tracks are really badly recorded, they're unpleasant to listen to, and with how short these tracks are, we don't get a whole lot of context as to what the argument is about. For the most part, he lets her talk more than he showcases himself talking or arguing or posing questions. And even though she may sound really aggressive and may sound kind of like a bully with how she's shouting at Raury, a lot of the stuff she's saying makes sense. She seems to be really concerned for her son's future, his education, especially as she says to him, look, I'm not trying to get anything from you, I'm not trying to grift anything from you, but these people who you may be dealing with definitely will. They'll want their 20%, they'll want their 30%. And maybe this is something that Raury is aware about. Maybe this is something that he accepts and understands, but if he does, it doesn't really come through in these snippets, and it especially does not come through on these songs, which for the most part are pretty breezy and forgettable. There's the song Wildfire, which to me kind of feels like what would occur if you had a collaboration between Pharrell and the Underachievers with the worst possible outcome. The song kind of feels like a Kitty Pryde song, pre-removing the pride from her name. It's very spacey, it's cloud rapish, it's very ethereal. There are twittering hi-hats playing throughout the instrumental. The delivery of both Raury and his guest singer feel very unaffected, underwhelming, but there's no cute factor here. There's nothing endearing about it. It's just boring. The song Chariots of Fire toward the back end of this LP turns out to be this really sort of cheesy rock song with more size than stroke. There are these huge backup vocals, pummeling drums, but the song really goes nowhere and ends up sounding as redundant as God's Whisper. Then there's the absolutely mundane closing track on this LP, which is 8 minutes long and features a bunch of vocals forgettably and needlessly emoting over a very bland beat. It's kind of uninspiring, although thematically it seems to be kind of getting down to the idea of youth and being inexperienced and being just stubborn. However, the song instrumentally, vocally, doesn't really show off this youthful brashness, this idea that, hey, listen, I don't care what anybody thinks, I'm going to go ahead and do what I feel like I gotta do. No, instead the track just sounds kind of uninspiring. Like Raury's mother says in one of these arguments, it needs direction. In the future, I could see Raury, at this point he is at now, producing for other people, or songwriting for other people, writing hooks or just writing like musical parts for other singers that may have more of a defined sound or delivery to their singing or rapping or what have you. But until the day comes where Raury somehow miraculously pulls a definitive personality out of anywhere, I don't see myself enjoying a Raury project. I'm feeling a decent to strong 4 on this thing. Transition, if you've given this record a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Raury, forever.